Rachael Treasure, welcome to Booktopia.
Thank you, Caroline.
We first met Beck Saunders in JILLAROO, so where's she at now in The Farmer's Wife?
Well, that's an interesting question. 10 years on, she has 2 children, she has a marriage that's struggling, and she's looking at the landscape of her property, and it's a farm that's failing to function. Financially, it's bleeding to death. Environmentally, it's suffering. And she's asking some very tough questions about herself, her marriage, and also the management of Waters Meeting, which is the beloved property that so many readers fell in love with in JILLAROO.
And what are the kinds of solutions that she wants to embrace for the property that create conflict between her and Charlie, her husband?
Well, interestingly, it parallels with my own experience. In 2009, we had some drought funding to bring a farmer down to speak to our farmers in our district, and his name was Colin Syce. So Becky has a similar character come into her life, Andrew Travis, and Andrew introduces what is happening around the planet, which is the renaissance of agriculture, where we work with the feminine side of agriculture. We work with Mother Nature to build soil health. So Becky is trying to introduce those methods onto Waters Meeting, and Charlie is now the representation of the masculine technological form of farming, which has failed us, and not only failed us, it is driving us towards a cliff of extinction. And I know this is a rural romance genre, but that's just how serious the issues that Beck faces, and also myself as a mum of children. Where are we headed?
Now, as well as Charlie, her husband, and Andrew, who is the kind of messenger of the sort of new way of doing things, there's another man in this book. Let's get to know him a little bit.
Well, there's Sol Stanton, and he's kind of the glamorous European man who comes with all the trappings of wealth, but isn't spoilt by that. But what is appealing about Sol is he's a blank canvas. I think as farmers, particularly generational farmers, we can get locked into mindset. Now, Colin Syce, the real-life farmer who I base Andrew on, he is one of the fortunate farmers that has a really open mind through his own crisis of being burnt out in '79, very dramatically, and Andrew carries that story. But along that with Sol is an introduction to Beck of a whole new world, and a man who I guess is passionate and expressive and rather romantic.
50 Bales of Hay was a pretty raunchy, racy book. And there's something about the idea of the hard-working farmer, whether that's a man or a woman, and this incredibly sort of raunchy way of life where even a ride-on mower becomes, you know, basically like a vibrator, which kind of is a bit of a sort of stretch for me, because I'm thinking, wouldn't you just be too tired at the end of the day?
Well, I think, yes, you would be, actually. Speaking from experience, it's exhausting, farming and motherhood and all the rest. 50 Bales of Hay really was, it was a joke. I've had criticism saying, oh, it was a bit disgusting, but I'm a wholesome girl, and it was a joke. And my friend actually had an experience of falling off her husband's cox right on. Okay, so I rang her and she sounded rather distressed, and she said, I've just fallen off James's cox and I hit my head on the trampoline. It was terrible. And I just thought that sentence was so funny. So of course in 50 Bales, I explored that.
One of the things that Becky relies on in her kind of farming life for support is her network of women friends. Are those friendships, do you think, something that women in the bush do value in a very particular way?
Absolutely. I think as women we prop each other up. I think also as women we can limit one another. If you have a rocky marriage, you don't want to see someone flying high who's solo. And by the same token, someone flying high who's solo can see women embedded in a loving, supportive marriage. And I think we can get jealousy happening between women and competition. I'm fortunate that my friends, I call them my earth angels, we kind of rough and ready redneck girls, but we have a core approach to life that's based in spirituality and gratitude. I believe as women, now's our time, not to make a lot of aggressive noise, but to really lead the way in the new path, the renaissance of agriculture. because it's the women who are putting the meals in front of the children, and we don't want herbicides in our systems. We don't want fertiliser. We don't want to kill the planet by ploughing the soil and using fossil fuel and making our farm businesses lacking profitability. Colin Sykes himself says it's the women that need to move us forward. I'm not saying this as a really loud, aggressive feminist that we have to keep the men down. Colin himself says the masculine style of farming, which are the big tractors, the technology, the companies, the companies are keeping us poor, the big companies, and it's a global trend. So it's time that the grassroots revolution that is happening is brought to the forefront. And I think Farmer's Wife does that lovingly, gently and beautifully, so that there will be women that pick that book up, and there'll be men that pick up 50 bales of hay and come to the Farmer's Wife knowing I don't write rural romance and chick lit as such. They will see that I know my stuff, and I'm doing it on my own property. So I'm hoping people can come to my farm and look at the biodiversity and the profitability that's happening there. And I can be one of many women who are leading a pathway forward for change.